Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for being you. My name's Emily. Did not even know Booktube existed until like within the last 6 months, which was really shocking when I discovered it. And I actually knew about Book Talk first. And I don't even use TikTok, so I didn't like use Book Talk, but I had no idea. I'm still getting over this because it's been around for a long time. And I've been using YouTube since it started when I was a child. So I don't know how I missed it. Today I'm going to talk about everything I read in January. Today is February 2nd, so I can talk about everything I read in January. I read a total of 15 books, which sounds like a lot, but 9 of them were graphic novels. One was a pretty short story. One was a middle grade for kids. So, I mean, I didn't read that many like full-length novels or anything. The first thing I read in 2023 was Spy Family Volume 1. This is a manga that I just found out about last year. I watched the anime last year and I had been really wanting to read the manga. So I'm really excited that I finally was able to do that. Only reason I hadn't read it last year in 2022 was because at the beginning of the year, when I thought I would only read probably like 10 books of the year, I decided I was not going to read any books by men. But as I kept reading more, I just decided to keep on with that. So I did not read any books by men last year. When January began, I knew that I really wanted to start with this manga. I actually had never read any manga before. It's been something I've been really interested in, but I just have never done it. So I started out with Spy Family. So I read volumes 1 through 7 of Spy Family in January. I have Volume 8 on my list for February, and then Volume 9 will be released in English soon, and I'll be reading that once it comes out. But if you don't know the story, it's about a dad who's a spy, a wife who's an assassin. They don't know who each other are. It's a fake marriage. And then a young adopted daughter who's a telepath and therefore knows the identity of both her parents, but they don't know about each other and they don't know about the daughter. So it's really fun. It's a little bit intense at times. For the most part, it's just really funny and lighthearted, and it's just really fun. I highly recommend Spy Family, the manga, or just go ahead and watch the anime, and it's wonderful as well. The manga is a little bit ahead of the anime, of course. I also read a graphic novel called Here by Richard McGuire. And this was another one I was really eager to read once I learned the premise of the book. Sorry, I just started thinking about something else. And so the premise of this, it's really more of a piece of art than a book, really more about the illustrations than the words. There aren't a lot of words in the story. It is about a specific place on Earth over thousands and millions of years, all the things that have happened in this particular space. I really loved this. I went into it expecting really high things, expecting to love it, because this is something that I think about so constantly. I'm always thinking about what has happened in this particular place. Like, I'm in the same place as these really historic things. It's just a different time. Like, it's just so strange to me to like really think about. And I think about that whether, you know, I'm at home or just taking a walk or something, what has happened here, like not really knowing what has happened exactly. Or other times if I go somewhere that I know has a really meaningful history, like going to New Orleans, for example, or when I went to Greece, like that feeling was just so heavy. You see things that are unbelievably, unfathomably old and know that there is so much history. We may have an idea of what the history is. Other places we don't know the history, and this is kind of one of those places, not one that we know everything about. And like I said, that's just something I think about so constantly. So I was really hoping that it would go really deep into the history of this particular place that was explored in this book. And I felt like it did a wonderful job with that. But there are things that I would have changed about it. I thought that the artist was really great with things like landscapes and setting and everything, which is kind of the point of the story, but the faces were just like horrible. I did not like that. So that's something I'm always picky about, is if like faces don't look good. I just don't like that, but that's, you know. I also wish some of the stories that were briefly explored in this book were gone a little bit deeper, that we had some resolution to some of the things that we saw the beginnings of, if that makes sense. I really recommend just going ahead and picking this up. You can finish it in a day. The point is to think about the history of a place. So I thought it was wonderful. Next, I read White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I am really interested in reading some of his longer novels, but I wanted to start out with a short story of his, just to, I've never read any Russian literature at all, actually, so just to get familiarized with that. And so I read White Nights. I really liked it. It was just like a short story about unrequited love. I guess you could say it was pretty quiet. It was not very dramatic. You really felt for the characters even though you didn't know a lot about them. You know, it's a short story. So then I read Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I had never read any of her books until reading the Heartstopper series last year. So now I'm caught up all the way to where Heartstopper Volume 5 will be, which is not released yet. I liked Solitaire. It was like, you can definitely tell she wrote it when she was a teenager herself, which is actually something I really appreciate. I thought the story was like entertaining. It was easy to pick up and read kind of quickly. I didn't really like the ending. I didn't really like the whole like solitaire premise. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. But I thought it was good. I thought it was entertaining. So. And then I read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I can never really decide how I feel about this. It has a very kind of poetic writing style, which is not really my thing. I don't really know how I feel about the story either. I liked it in some ways just because of how emotional and raw it kind of was. Really, the whole thing was just super open in terms of emotions, which I really liked. Did I find the overall story entertaining? Not really. Even though I don't like the poetic style, there were moments that I liked. I also read Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I thought this was really great. It's a middle grade fantasy all about this young girl named Amari who gets involved with the supernatural world and tries to find out where her brother has gone, who has been missing. I am planning to read the sequel in February, so I'm excited to see how that goes. I haven't reread a book in such a long time, years and years. Usually I just read new books all the time. But I decided to reread A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman. This was one I read about 5 years ago, and I really enjoyed it at the time. I gave it 5 stars, and I decided to reread it because of the new film being released based on the book. I've never seen the Swedish version of the film, and then now there is the American version, so I'm planning to watch both of those versions and possibly do a video comparing the book with those two film versions of the story. So this time around there were certain things that bothered me, I think more than the first time I read it. Just like how much fat phobia was in it was just really annoying to me. I did actually annotate this. I went ahead and bought myself a copy. I originally read it from the library and I knew that I liked it when I started to read it again, so I decided to buy it, and I was able to annotate it. And then I read The Magic Fish by Trung Le Nguyen, and this I really loved. It was another graphic novel, and the art style was so amazing. The faces in this were amazing, but the art in general was amazing. It was all about language and acceptance and immigration and fitting in, and it just had so many great things. This young boy is going through realizing he's gay and not knowing how to come out to his parents. He doesn't know the Vietnamese way to say that he is gay, so he is kind of worried about that. And one thing that he always has with his parents is telling stories with them, telling fairy tales that ultimately are able to help bring them closer together and all of that. So it's just really great. And then the last book I read in January was unfortunately my least favorite one, which was Things My Son Needs to Know About the World by Frederick Bachman. So I am interested in reading some more of Frederick Bachman's books after really liking A Man Called Ove. I just want to see what else he can do. I know his books tend to be pretty emotional and everything, which I do enjoy. So I decided I'm just going to read all of his books in chronological order because A Man Called Ove is the first one anyways. It kind of feels like I'm reading a series if I'm doing that. So it makes me want to get to the next one. But this one was it was not good. It was a letter to his son, essentially, that I feel like didn't need to be published. I was hoping to read it with maybe some insights on parenting and stuff. I don't know what I was expecting really, but there were a couple moments that I liked, but for the most part wasn't really my thing, which makes me curious about how the rest of his books are going to go. His first two were so different from each other. So that is everything. Those are all the books I read in January 2023. I felt like I got off to a really great start this year with all of my reading, and I'm excited to see what I'm able to do in the upcoming months. My reading goal for 2023 is 100 books, and I think it is definitely possible for me to get there. I certainly have never done that before. Last year I read over 60 books, and that was like, you know, more than I'd ever done before also. So I'm just excited to do a lot more reading. I'm just really feeling like reading, and knowing that there are just so many books out there that I would like to read, it just makes me really motivated to keep going reading as much as I can. So thank you so much for joining me today, listening to me talk about all the books I read. I'd love to know if you read any of these books as well, or any books that you read in January that you'd like to talk about. So feel free to let me know if anyone's watching, and I will hopefully be back with another video. I can never promise anything. We'll try my best to be consistent. That's the thing I'm most worried about with doing the YouTube thing. I just am really bad at consistently doing things. So, and I appreciate you being here. I am stalling because I don't know how to end these videos, because I don't think I'm someone who could say the same thing when I'm ending a video or when I'm starting a video, because I just think that sounds hard. So I will catch you later. Yeah, I guess that's good enough. So maybe I will put some other books, like insert them digitally.